Welcome to the Dr. Diane Show, where we explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. With over 20 years of expertise as a mindset warrior, perspective shifter, and unshakable optimist, I am dedicated to helping you reach your wildest dreams in business, health, performance, and relationships. Learn about the power of thought and how it shapes your life to take risks, change careers, find love, go on adventures, and live passionately with me, Dr. Diane. Get ready for revolutionary ways of thinking, being, and creating an amazing life. The Dr. Diane Show starts now. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Diane Hayden, and you are listening to the Dr. Diane Show on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour, where we will explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul. Each time on the Dr. Diane Show, we have experts from around the country discussing cutting-edge topics on longevity medicine, natural health, mindset, and soul purpose to help you shift your perspective and become a mindset warrior like me. I'm excited today to have with me Jenni Berman. She is a certified physician assistant, graduated from the Nova Southeastern University Physician Assistant Program. Following her school training, she had the opportunity to mentor with Dr. Carolyn Cedarquist, an Institute of Functional Medicine certified physician. Jenni found her passion treating individuals from the inside out, treating problems and not just symptoms. She specializes in weight management, gut health, and hormone imbalances, and she focuses on nutritional changes to improve autoimmune conditions, pain, the intestinal tract, hormones, and weight. Jenni has been practicing medicine for over 7 years and opened her own wellness practice nearly 2 years ago alongside her husband, Dr. Jake Bergman's physical therapy practice in Naples, Florida. She's a certified personal trainer and certified nutrition specialist, and she now treats individuals one-on-one to treat problems and not symptoms. Her practice specializes in helping individuals to improve their health from the inside out, reach their goal weight, and help them to achieve the highest quality of life imaginable. So, welcome, Jenni. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm great. That was a great intro.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I know that you are passionate about a lot of this stuff, and we're going to get into some cool things talking about gut health and insulin resistance and all that. But I kind of like to start with a little bit of background about you so our listeners and viewers can get to know you and I'm sure are curious about kind of what led you on this journey to become a physician assistant and then specialize in what you do.
Absolutely. I'd love to talk a little bit more about that. So, I didn't know what I wanted to be ever. Even in college, I was changing my mind. Do I want to follow my sister's track and go physical therapy? Do I want to go into speech pathology? I knew medicine was where I wanted to be, but didn't know where in medicine. And it wasn't until I started exploring what physician assistants do and actually shadowing them and finding that I do love medicine and have a passion for medicine. Went to school, going through school, I just fell in love with orthopedic medicine. I was a gymnast growing up, had many injuries, spent tons of time in the doctor's office having surgeries. So, right after school, I jumped into pediatric orthopedic medicine where I loved it. But then I found it wasn't my passion. And the reason it wasn't my passion is through my schooling and the years just after graduating PA school, I actually started having some personal medical issues that doctors couldn't figure out. So I was hospitalized. I was having a lot of GI, gastrointestinal issues, loose stool, nausea, wasn't abdominal pain, wasn't able to really thrive efficiently. I was losing weight, I was losing hair. I was very, very sick
That's
and was
scary.
extremely, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, as a healthy, quote unquote, healthy young 25-year-old individual to be put in the hospital losing weight and nobody can give you answers, it's extremely scary. So I spent the next couple of years, several years, bouncing from GI doctor to GI doctor, doctor to doctor, trying acupuncture, trying anything and everything I could get my hands on to figure it out. And it was actually my husband and I that researched and was reading books and was able to finally figure out what was going on for myself. And what it came down to is I was having some food sensitivities or food allergies. There were certain food groups that I wasn't tolerating, and my gut health had just been really destroyed over the last couple of years. So through this and helping myself and doing my own research, I realized how many people are going through this. And the answer is way too many. And so I knew that I had found more of a passion in medicine. I loved orthopedics, I loved helping kids, but my passion was here and really figuring out how can I reach one more person to change their life around when no other doctor has been able to take the time and give them the answers that they need.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that story is amazing as far as like what you went through and, realizing what you have to realize. And I feel like there's so many holistic practitioners that I talk to that that's how they came to their specialty is basically they had that issue and had to figure it out themselves. And, like went to a million doctors, nobody could really help them. And maybe might have been lucky enough to find a naturopath or, a holistic practitioner, functional medicine doctor that could, or, like you figure it out on your own.
Right, right.
So
And thankfully, with the help of my husband, because I probably wouldn't have taken the time, with working and being in medicine, I wouldn't have taken as much time as I should have to do the research. So, really grateful for him to be a partner with me in figuring that out. But that's what it comes down to. Doctors are busy and we are trained to be Western medicine and go for the medication. And that's what was happening to me is every doctor I went to, here, take these 4 pills, take these 6 pills. And yeah, your symptoms are controlled, but now I'm 25 years old taking 17 pills a day and I have to stay on them forever. That's not the answer.
right.
And I get it. We're trained to make sure people aren't dying in school. That's our job is to figure out the worst case scenario, make sure they're not dying. We don't have extensive training on nutrition or gut health. And so that's where, getting into more of the functional medicine world where I have the ability and the time to sit down with my patients and talk nutrition has just been life changing for so many.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think what's interesting, I know I remember the first time that I was learning about it, and I think many people will find this really fascinating, is how much of an impact your gut really has on pretty much everything in your
Everything.
body. Like, not just, people think about gut health and they think, oh, well, like IBS or, digestive issues or things related to the intestines or your stomach. But it can impact whether or not you have autoimmune diseases. It can impact, whether or not you lose weight, gain weight. It can even affect your brain. So those are the kinds of things that I want to get into with you because I think that that's what people will find fascinating. There are a ton of, if you do the research, the information is out there now, like the whole gut brain connection. But the average person who isn't reading those types of articles or journals, this might be the first time they've heard about that.
Right, right. And you're exactly right. I say it every single week in my practice, if not several times per week, is our gut is our second brain. And people say, well, what does that even mean? There's actually 500 million nerve responses in your gut that transmit back to the brain. So when the gut is not healthy, that could be 500 million nerves or up to that nerves that are trying to communicate with your brain that are not communicating efficiently. And just as you said, the effects your gut can have. And so what is the gut? Let's start there. The gut is the entire tract basically from the mouth to the anus. So from the mouth, the saliva, the esophagus, where people have reflux or what they call Barrett's esophagus. Some people will be like, oh, I have that. But even going into the stomach, the intestines, the colon, the rectum. So that entire tract is what we consider the gut. And all of your organs surrounding that, your liver, your pancreas, your kidneys are all affected by how healthy the gut is too. And definitely the effects of the gut go head to toe, inside to outside. It is an entire body experience. You stopped on or talked about autoimmune disease. 97% of autoimmune disease actually starts in the gut itself with an imbalance of gut health or the gut environment.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty amazing, like how much of an impact it does have on, your all of your physiological systems, your body, all of that. So, when someone decides that they're going to come see you, like what can they expect? How is it different from going to just their traditional doctor?
That's a great question. So we start out with a very extensive medical history with our patients. And so first things first, when we talk to them on the phone, we're getting an idea of what are they looking for? Do they know they have gut issues? Or a lot of times they don't know they have gut issues. They're coming in, for maybe an energy issue, and we find out they have rheumatoid arthritis, or they have migraines, or they have a early onset dementia or whatever their symptoms are. And we're starting to identify, okay, they're having some autoimmune type issues or inflammatory responses. So we talk with them first, we get them scheduled for an initial consult, we go deep into their medical history, and that tells me what kind of blood testing could be helpful for us to fully evaluate the person from the inside out. The blood test gives us even more data than just the medical history, their medication lists, their history of medicines or doctor's visits that they've had. The blood test will actually show us what's going on the inside. And sometimes we even go into looking into food sensitivities, which is a blood test that can tell us exactly what foods are best for the patient versus what foods should be avoided for the patient. And that's the starting point to us being able to combine their history that they've given us, their symptoms that they're telling us, plus seeing this objective data from the inside. And then we're able to start a treatment process.
Yeah, it's got to be totally different from going to your traditional doctor where you go in and maybe you get 15 minutes with them, or more likely they're seeing a PA or a nurse practitioner. They're not even seeing the regular doctor, and it's essentially just, okay, like, what are your symptoms, what prescription can we write for them?
Right,
Like,
right.
like what you had to deal with all these prescriptions and whatnot. And they don't even real like, what can you accomplish in 15 minutes? It's just
Right.
like, again, it's basically just like talking about what your symptoms are, and the doctor saying, well, this can fix it, but that's never getting to the root cause. So, and
Exactly.
God's like, it's like another whole podcast of us
Yeah.
talking about like the problems with being on a bunch of pharmaceuticals and being on them for long periods of time, for sure. So I think this is fascinating. We're going to get into a lot more about gut health and metabolism and all that good stuff. We're going to take a short break. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. When we come back, we will explore more with Jenni Berman, certified physician assistant and nutrition specialist. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. But before we continue, I want to make sure everyone knows how to contact me. You can find me at www.drdianehayden, that's drdianehayden.com, or my publications, www.naturalnutmeg.com and www.essentialnaples.com. And you can learn more about Jenni Berman at www.bermanpt, that's BERMANPT.com/wellness. So welcome back, Jenni. How are you?
Thank you. All good.
Good,
Great,
good. Awesome.
actually.
We were talking about just the importance of gut health and, how people, when they come to see you, what can they expect in terms of, how you're different from going to a traditional doctor. And we had to go to break. So I just wanted to make sure that we covered everything that you wanted to say as far as just the difference in, the experience of when people come to see you versus traditional medical professionals.
Absolutely. And something you had commented on right before the break was the amount of time that most physicians have to see their patients when they're in regular primary care practice. And that is a very big difference for us, is we spend an hour to an hour and a half on our initial evaluation for our patients. And then the second visit that we see our patients is also another hour to an hour and a half. And so really getting to know the patient and to understand them and to talk to them, educate them is huge. And the lab testing that we do is very extensive compared to what most physicians will do, because again, we're putting more of a functional medicine spin, looking a little bit more in depth, not worrying, and this is a whole nother podcast, like you said, we could talk about, but not worrying about what the insurance is going to cover or not cover, because we're ordering the test to treat the patient and the problem and not just trying to figure out what coverage is there.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big one. I mean, that's like my biggest pet peeve. And I feel like that's just like one of the things we try to do a lot in terms of educating our readers and our listeners is just, not to immediately, decide that you're not going to do something for your health because insurance doesn't cover it.
Right.
And to me, it's about just taking responsibility for your health and not leaving it up to the insurance companies to decide whether or not you should have this, this testing done, or you should see this type of integrative practitioner because it's not covered by insurance. I mean, we got to get out of that mindset of, oh, I can't pay cash, that's too expensive, or, I'm just, if insurance doesn't cover it, then I'm not going to do it. I've had literally so many conversations with people where they're suffering from something. Interestingly enough, the last one that I had was a woman who has all these gut health issues, and I recommended her to a nutrition. She's a board certified, actually, holistic nutritionist up here in Connecticut, and she was so excited to do it. She's been suffering for like a year, and come to find out, she ends up not going because it wasn't covered by insurance. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
come on. I mean,
Right.
like, why are you allowing the insurance companies to dictate your health care? It's crazy.
That's exactly it. They are dictating it. And you, at that point, then are just treating your symptoms and not feeling your best, not living the highest quality of life because we're not getting, or you're not getting to the bottom of it. The other side of that, though, is you've already touched on is what are the medications you end up taking doing as a side effect, and how are they actually causing more impact to the symptoms that you're already having? As this gut health issue prolongs, what cascade of events is happening later on in your life where you do start to develop nerve issues or dementia or for more autoimmune disease? Most individuals don't just have one autoimmune disease because they haven't, again, treated the problem. They find out they have an autoimmune disease and they get put on a medication. It's treating the symptom, not the problem. So then 5, 10 years later, another autoimmune disease develops because, again, we haven't got to the root cause of it. So yeah, it's frustrating.
I know. And but that's why we do what we do, basically,
Yeah.
is, to just keep educating people on, why they need to be proactive about this and make their own decisions. And it always blows my mind that people are more than willing to run out and, spend $1 gazillion on a new car or some, piece of furniture or clothing or whatever. But it's like when it's healthcare, it's like, like, I don't want to pay for that.
Right. Right. Why should I have to pay for that? That's the mindset, is why should I have to? And you can't have that mindset. Your health
Right.
should be the priority. So,
Yeah. So something that you just mentioned that I wanted to touch on that I think, it definitely, like, I know this, but when you said it, I'm like, oh yeah, I want to go back to that because I think that might pique people's interest, or they might hear it and be like, wait, did she say that? Like gut health relating to, or poor gut health, I think leading to things like dementia. And I think that most people probably have never heard that before.
right.
Like we said earlier, like when people think about, having problems with gut health, they're thinking about IBS or,
Mhm.
digestive issues or constipation or diarrhea or things like that. They're not thinking like, oh, wow, this problem with my gut could eventually lead to dementia or worse.
Right. So we have genes, right, that we are born with, and we have the ability to turn our genes on and off. And that's something a lot of people don't know, is they say, oh, it's genetic. My mom has it, I'm destined to have it, or it runs in the family. Every family member has it. So yes, you may have the gene for it, but you have the ability to control that gene from not turning on and preventing it, or preventing the risk factor from being there. And the way to do that is to control the environment of your genes and protecting the gut health and inflammation internally. To touch on the dementia part of it, is what happens is when the gut health is broken down, or the gut lining is broken down, and we're not absorbing our nutrients, we're not providing the right vitamins and minerals to support brain health, number one. Number two, inflammation, again, is systemic. So if we have inflammation in our gut, that inflammation is traveling through all the other nerves that are in our body, again, affecting the nerves in the brain as well. So this inflammation ends up eating the matter of the brain. And that's essentially what dementia is the matter starts to degrade or decline, so that there's no communication between the nerves in our brain, or neurotransmitters, if we want to get specific.
Clinical.
But yeah, so it really, it does. The gut health can cause migraines. It can cause the rheumatoid arthritis, the autoimmune thyroid disease, the dementia, and Alzheimer's. And again, there's other parts of nutrition that play into these autoimmune diseases too. So like saturated fats, which is a bad fat, is very contraindicated or not recommended for those who have a risk factor of dementia and Alzheimer's. So a lot plays into the nutrition component, but the gut health is first and foremost. You have to make the environment of your gut appropriate to reduce inflammation.
Yeah. And as you're talking, I'm thinking like, how many people really understand, what they're putting in their mouth? I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
can read labels, and I think, most people now understand that, you got to, when you go to the grocery store, shop the perimeter, first of all. But if you're going down the aisles or whatnot, and even at Whole Foods, which is like to me one of the biggest offenders, because everybody thinks that you walk into Whole Foods, you can buy anything on the
You're
shelf and it's
safe.
healthy. Not
Yeah,
true.
right.
People should be looking at labels and reading things. But I mean, as educated as I am about it, and I've been in this industry for years, I still sometimes will look at labels and be like, I think that that's not a great ingredient, but I'm not really sure. So then I just stay away from, if I don't know what it is, I don't eat it at all.
Right.
But how many times do we go out to a restaurant, and even a farm to table restaurant, and think like, oh, this is just like walking into Whole Foods. I can order anything on this menu, and it's safe. And it's really not. It's what made me think of that was when you mentioned saturated fats, because I think even though a restaurant can market itself as, we're using all local ingredients and it's farm to table and it's healthy, blah, blah, blah. What are they cooking with? What
Right.
kinds of
Right.
oils are they cooking with?
And that's exactly right. Is the what where the food comes from is important. So is it organic? Is it farm to table? Is it locally grown? Is it non-modified, meaning no GMOs? That's all really important. But at the end of the day, the macronutrients, meaning the proteins, the carbohydrates, and the fats in these foods, is still very important. And as you mentioned, eating out, you don't know, are they using butter, or are they using grass-fed butter? Are they using olive oil versus canola oil? Canola oil being the bad one. So you don't know when you eat out at most places. So eating at home, you have a little bit more control. But we talk about this daily. We had a patient, that's been with us just 2 weeks now, that I was talking with my staff about today. And I said, I don't think he's purposely eating outside of his macronutrients. He just doesn't know. He doesn't have the education to know what food is a carbohydrate, what food is not a carbohydrate, or a good carbohydrate versus a bad. And so we just have to break it down even further and say, okay, these are the foods we want to stick with for a week. And then next week, change it up a little bit, just to start that education process. It's a lot of information for people.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, because as like I said before, like as educated and as much information that I've read and studied and whatnot, and even I still struggle with sometimes, what's good, what's not good, where should I go out to eat? And let's be honest, I mean, we don't. it would be great to eat at home every single night, but I would say the average person is just tired of cooking, right? And
Sure.
so
Yeah.
whether they go out or they get takeout, to me, that's the same thing, honestly, really, because it's
Right.
still another kitchen that's making it. You don't have full control over it. So I think it's more like, how do you balance that? How can you make little changes and, things that you can do that, make it easier so it's not like so overwhelming. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. We're going to take another short break. I'm talking today with Jenni Berman, certified physician assistant and nutrition specialist. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden, and I am talking today with Jenni Berman. She is a certified physician assistant and nutrition specialist, and she practices in Naples, Florida. You can learn more about her at www.bermanpt.com. That's BERMAN, P as in Paul, T as in Tom.com/wellness. So when we left for break, we were talking about just, how difficult it can be for people to figure out, like, how do I make sure I'm not getting bad saturated fats in my, in my diet, and just the struggle that we all have, I think, in terms of, wanting to eat as healthy as possible and balancing that with being tired of cooking, quite
Right.
honestly.
Yes.
Um, and so, just like, maybe what do you tell people as far, do you have any like quick and easy tips that you give to people as far as how not to be overwhelmed with all of the, the information that you need to know, I feel like.
Right. Yes, it is a lot of information. And, we see our clients on a weekly basis for that reason, because we want to slowly provide them the information and the education they need without overwhelming them, and be able to make the modifications and adjustments every week, because it's just too much information to find out in 1 week and say, okay, see you in a month, have fun. So we do, that part of it is the slow and steady education is really important. But generally speaking, if you mentioned shopping on the perimeter of grocery stores, which is great, but we will focus on a protein and a vegetable as your base source throughout the whole entire day. So every meal, every snack, we want it to be a lean protein option. What does lean protein mean? We will give the equation essentially that says, when you're looking at the nutrition label, you want the protein to be 2 times the fat content. So if the protein is 14, we want the fat to be 7 or less on that particular product. And that's how you know, okay, this is a lean protein option. I'm going to go with that. And just trying to stick with having a lean protein breakfast, lunch, dinner, and for your 2 snacks during the day. Pair it with vegetables, cooked veggies, leafy green veggies, raw veggies, if that's something that you like to do. And then as far as the carbohydrates go, we generally will tell individuals have a carb serving at your breakfast or your lunch, meaning a half a cup of berries, a half a sweet potato, a slice of low carb bread or gluten-free bread if needed. So we provide, the different more complex carbohydrate options, and recommend that individuals are pairing them with their breakfast or lunch. When eating out, you're generally safe. If you stick with a protein and a vegetable eating out, you're generally going to be safe. Now, that protein, as you mentioned, may have a little bit more fat in it because they're making it with butter, the steak with butter, as opposed to just grilling it at home on your own. But if you're doing that once or twice a week, it's going to be okay. At the end of the week, we want our nutrients balanced.
I just want to say one quick thing. You can
Yeah,
actually ask the server to cook your meal in butter. I know a lot of places will do that. Like, I've asked, like, what do you use? And usually that's canola oil, which I
right.
don't love. I mean, I know a lot of people think, oh, that's fine, but I think it's actually one of the bad oils. And um, you can ask, can you cook my meal in butter? And a lot of
Right.
times they'll do that. Or even if they have coconut oil or something like that, but a more healthier oil. So just ask, like, and see if the restaurant is open to that.
And you're absolutely right. We talk about that all the time, is just modify what you need to. So every meal when you're out is going to come with rice or potatoes or French fries. ask for a double vegetable, ask to omit the carbohydrate and put another veggie on the plate, more greens on the plate. And restaurants are always willing to do that. You just, as you said, you have to ask, you have to be educated and know what questions to ask. That's really important too.
Yeah. So, as far as the macronutrients, which people may or may not know, carbohydrates, fats, proteins, why is it so important that they are balanced? Like, how does that, or I should say, if they're not balanced, how does that affect your metabolism?
It's a great question. And I know we've shifted from gut health to macros, but that's really actually still very important because the two go hand in hand together. If we're not fueling our body efficiently, meaning getting the right fuel, the right food, the right balance of our nutrients into our system, our body is not going to recover. So while we're trying to heal our gut or to improve autoimmune disease or get our vitamin levels where they should be, we have to make sure we're getting the right gasoline, quote unquote, into our cells. Now, if our macronutrients, meaning the proteins, the carbohydrates, and fats, are not balanced within our body and for our body specifically, because your macro balance is going to be different than mine, it's going to be different than my husband's. So we need to make sure that we know what our macros should be for our body. But if we do not have that proper balance, our cells are not going to metabolize our food efficiently. And what happens in that case is our body starts storing food as sugar, and sugar turns to fat, most commonly abdominal fat. So the flat tire around the midsection that we complain about as we get older, going through menopause, or even men as they age. So our body starts storing food as sugar, which turns to fat. Not only are we gaining weight, but the other problem is now our cells are being starved of nutrients because the food's being stored as sugar and not actually getting into our cells to be utilized for energy. So now the cells are struggling. We're feeling more fatigued. We're feeling more brain fog. Our blood sugar level is going up. Our pancreas, which tries to help to control blood sugar, is getting fatigued and tired to where the point where some individuals need to go on insulin. Our vitamin deficiencies are becoming more prevalent because we're not absorbing the right nutrients. So it again is a detrimental effect with a cascade of events afterwards.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I mean, like as we're talking and people are listening to this, I think I can see the progression from like, okay, really what it comes down to is the importance of every single thing that you put in your mouth. Whether we're talking about gut health and how it's going to, like, maybe it's you're eating something that you have developed a food sensitivity to or an allergy to, and or it's just bad food, quite honestly, and so how that's affecting your whole GI tract system, and then how that affects whether or not you get certain diseases and how it affects your brain and all those things. And then also from a cellular level, looking at like, okay, you know, let's break it down to the macronutrients and how do I, with each meal that I have, the importance of balancing those three things and making sure that, you're fueling yourself. I think people don't think about food as fuel, right? People
Right.
think about food as like a party. It's so funny.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't remember now if I was reading a book or where I heard this. Um, oh no, I know who it was. It was one of it's actually in an article in Essential Naples right now, the fall issue. One of our writers said every meal does not need to be a party. And it should not be a party. And that's like people think that like, oh,
Right.
every meal has to be like so delicious. And
Right.
really it should be that's more about like, okay, save that for a couple times a week on the weekend or whatever. And your regular meals should be more focused on making sure you get these important macronutrients that are going to fuel your cells so you have energy, and not
Right.
like, and not to say that food can't be delicious, because I'm also thinking like there's a way to make simple food taste amazing. And the more you eat it, I think you even get used to the fact and prefer that after a while than things that are heavy with butters and creams and salts and all that kind of stuff.
Definitely. And it is about, trying new things. So I've actually created a cookbook for that reason is, I don't want people to think coming into us that they have to eat chicken and broccoli, right? Because
Right.
that's
Steamed.
the bad, right. That's the bad rap everybody gets when they hear macronutrients or going on a diet. And it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle of learning how to cook some different types of foods or learning how to order different types of foods to where it is still fun and interesting and nutritious. And so I actually created a cookbook for that reason where I'm constantly trying out recipes that I create. I take them from other places and adjust them to make them fit my needs. But am constantly creating new recipes, trying new things, and most of them are really, really awesome. And they're still fitting into the macronutrients, meaning a protein and a vegetable each time. But you have to try new things, pair it with different sauces, create new sauces, different seasonings to make it fun and interesting. It doesn't have to be boring. But you definitely, the protein in the vegetable is just so important for the brain and overall cellular function, the health.
Yeah, absolutely. So this cookbook, is that for sale?
It is, yes.
Oh, awesome.
It's
Okay.
on
Yeah.
Amazon. It's actually a 100% gluten-free and dairy-free recipe cookbook that is available on Amazon.
How do people find that?
That so it's actually if I could pull up the sorry, just give me 1 second so I could give you the
That's
exact.
okay. I know I didn't tell you that we were going to plug your cookbook.
That's okay.
I
I
didn't know
can
you had
provide
one,
the
but
link. I
yeah,
can provide the link if you guys have the show notes. I can provide the link. But on Amazon, if you type in gluten free and dairy free recipes, Jenni Berman,
perfect.
Jenni Berman on the search box on Amazon, it will pop up. It's a white and mint colored book. It's also on Kindle.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think that people would be excited to, to pick that up and honestly get some great ideas from you as far as how to make, simple meals taste really good. And that sometimes it's just a matter of experimenting with different spices and that kind of thing. So, I think that, honestly, like you said, people are so afraid that it's going to be chicken and broccoli and it's going to be totally boring. And, they're going to be like, oh God, I'm dreading doing this. But there are so many ways that you can make food interesting and really taste great. And like I said, I want to reiterate this. I have found that when you cook more simple and you start getting used to eating that, you're first of all, you're going to notice a huge difference in your energy and just the way that you feel. But I think you actually start to like that better than things that are laden with the heavy creams and, sauces and salts and that kind of thing. So I hope people will definitely check out your cookbook. And we are going to take a short break. I'm talking today with Jenni Berman, certified physician assistant and nutrition specialist. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden, and I am talking today with Jenni Berman. She is a certified physician assistant and nutrition specialist in Naples, Florida. And you can find out more about her at www.bermanpt.com. That's BERMANPT.com/wellness. And you can learn more about me at www.drdianehayden.com. So we've been talking about, gosh, everything.
We have.
Yeah, from gut health to the importance of macronutrients to how to balance and, our macronutrients and our meals and make them interesting and whatnot. And we spent a little bit of time, talking about the importance of how balancing those macronutrients is in terms of optimizing your metabolism. And you touched a little bit on if they're not balanced, how that can lead to insulin resistance and all the effects of that. And I think, people are familiar with that term, but, what does that do? I guess, like when you start to go down that path of insulin resistance, what are we seeing as far as, other things that are happening in the body?
It's a good question. So, just to kind of give an overview, insulin resistance was what I touched on, where the body wasn't being as efficient metabolizing food efficiently. And so it's storing food as sugar. which is causing the blood sugar levels to rise. And what happens is the blood sugar becomes unstable, meaning it's going to rise high after we eat, it's going to fall, it's going to rise high, it's going to fall. And that pattern's going to continue throughout the day. One of the biggest problems is that pattern continues through the night. So the rising and the falling of the blood sugar continues. We eat dinner, usually a carb heavy or has some type of carbohydrate or maybe wine, and the blood sugar spikes up. And usually sometime around 2, 3, 4 a.m., that blood sugar starts to dip.
And
Well, a
when
lot of
everybody wakes up.
Exactly. A lot of individuals will come say, I wake up at 3 a.m. and I can't go back to sleep. It takes me an hour to fall back asleep. I've tried all these sleeping aids and nothing is helping. And it comes down to, well, your blood sugar is dipping at that point, and the body wakes you up on purpose to try to restabilize the blood sugar. It is dangerous for your body to be sleeping with a low blood sugar. It's dangerous for the brain. We're not getting proper oxygen. So the body wakes you up. What you don't know is that your pancreas, which is a organ that we have that helps with controlling insulin or blood sugar levels, is working very hard. And so eventually, an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours later, your blood sugar comes back up to a more optimal range. We go back to sleep. We wake up in the morning and we're not hungry. We're like, can't even think about breakfast, not hungry, could go until 11 without eating. And that's a red flag for insulin resistance because the pancreas has already worked, insulin levels are already high, and our blood sugar is brought back up to a normal state where our body thinks we've already eaten. So we're not hungry in the morning. But the problem is then you don't eat till 11 or 12 in the day, and that blood sugar instability cycle just continues, and it's a pattern. So not only is this blood sugar instability affecting our weight, which we've already talked about, how it stores sugar or food as sugar, which turns to fat, it's interrupting our sleep, which is also affecting our cortisol, which is a stress hormone level. It's affecting our brain function because we're not getting proper rest and proper recovery. We're brain fog because of the higher blood sugar levels. We have low energy, not only because we're not getting fuel into our cells, but because our sleep is inadequate. So it has this, again, cascade of effective symptoms that we start to experience simply from a blood sugar instability issue.
Yeah, so as you were talking, this just popped into my head. We didn't discuss this, but I'm curious about your opinion. I'm thinking, when people wake up and they're not hungry, there's a lot of people that do intermittent fasting. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
that's their thing as far as like well, people do it for a number of reasons. One is to maintain weight or weight loss. I've talked to a lot of people who do it because they believe that it's helpful for longevity. It's one of the longevity medicine practices. But what's your opinion on that? Just, off the cuff, like you like it, you don't like it. Is it, for certain people, not for certain people?
That's exactly it. And so it's not something I typically recommend because the population that we see in our practice, many of them have this insulin resistance. And so what intermittent fasting means is that you're going 18 hours a day without eating, and you eat in a 6 hour window. And that is just too long of a period for individuals who have unstable blood sugar to go without eating. Or 16 hours, sorry, 16 hours with an 8 hour eating
I've
window.
actually heard what you just
Sorry,
said. Yeah,
but
I've
the
actually heard, yeah, of like higher than that, like
18,
18 and
yeah.
6. So yeah.
And it is, and that's becoming. I actually, the reason I said that is I was listening to a webinar on it just yesterday. I was listening to a webinar. So normal is 18 hour, 16 hour fast, 8 hour eating window, but some people are transitioning to the 18 and 6. But regardless, 16 to 18 hours is way too long to go without eating for individuals who already have an unstable blood sugar. It certainly does work for certain individuals who it keeps their caloric intake controlled, right? So they're keeping their body into more of a calorie deficit for weight loss purpose. And that will help some individuals, but you have to make sure you're fueling appropriately for your body and activity level in that eating window. In our practice, a lot of times for most individuals, we will recommend between a 12 to 14-hour fast, but maintaining adequate protein in their diet every 2 to 3 hours during their waking window. And so during that 10 to 12-hour eating window that they have, they're getting protein every 2 to 3 hours, as protein is the primary fuel to help with stabilizing blood sugar.
Yeah, it's just fascinating. And again, I think it what you just said reminds me again that it's so individualized, like it's really I hate it when these books come out that are like this, oh, try this diet or that diet or whatever, or, like eat this way or that way. It's really, and everybody jumps on the bandwagon like it's going to be this miracle thing for every person. And some people it works for, some people it doesn't. And it really just comes down to all these things that you really have to understand. Like you may not know if you have insulin resistance or how your blood sugar responds to things. And you might think intermittent fasting is going to be great for you. And come to find out it's not because, of everything that you just explained. So that's a whole another reason why people should come to see you basically is to figure out, all these things. So it's really about individualized medicine for, to treat whatever the health issue is that you have.
Right. It has to be based on the person, based on their inside. 86% of the population in the US has insulin resistance or blood sugar issues. So it's a very common thing we see, but everybody has to be treated differently for what's going to work for them and what's not going to work for them, especially based on other medications, activity level, supplements. It has to be one-on-one for sure.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I want to thank you so much, Jenni, for today. This has been awesome. Tons of great information, and I hope people will reach out to you. You can find Jenni at www.bermanpt.com/wellness. Definitely check out her cookbook for sure. And thank you for being with us. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in to the Dr. Diane Show. Join me the first and third Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. And next time, we'll be discussing more about the power of thoughts and beliefs and the impact they have on your life. Have a great week, and I will see you back here next time. Thank you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show, revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. Tune in every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on transformationtalkradio.com. Center your thoughts on what you want and shut the door on every suggestion of fear, worry, or lack from your own consciousness or the consciousness around you. Once you master that, everything is possible. To learn more about me, Dr. Diane, and receive a free digital subscription of my magazine, visit naturalnutmeg.com.